Hello, I'm Kelly, President and CEO of EP Electric. Today, we're starting our first podcast, Empowering People with Energy. With so much happening across the globe and right here at home regarding energy, our podcast will give voice to those important topics. With other thought leaders together, we'll explore questions that we don't even have answers to yet. So join us for this important discussion. We're looking forward to having you.
So, all right, well, let's get this started. We're here today, of course, with our very first podcast, and joining us, of course, is Kelly, our president and CEO, who is coming up on a year now.
Wow, fast year.
When did you start again, Kelly?
August 31st.
August 31st. All right. Well, I'm sure you've been told this many times, but welcome again.
Thank you.
To EP Electric. And, of course, we have this awesome podcast, and you mentioned that the whole purpose for this podcast is to bring thought leaders to explore conversations around energy. So we wanted to bring out one of our very first thought leaders, which is you. So it's so excited to sit here and have this conversation with you. Can you just really quick, just tell us, we're introducing a podcast. Why was it so important for us to take this initiative and start a podcast?
Well, energy is so important to our lives, right? And we really saw this during the freeze. We've seen it during COVID. It really is the foundation for our safety, our health, our wealth. And it's so important. And it's really hard to have those discussions in sound bites without having two-way conversation. You all do such great work in communications, putting out information. But I think we need a deeper dialogue. These issues are sometimes messy, and they don't have easy answers. So I think we wanted to open it up to other people and have a real discussion about something so important.
Absolutely. And today, like I said, we're calling today's podcast Empowering People with Energy. And thinking of that, there's so much meaning behind that for us here at El Paso, here at our utility. And maybe you could just share some insight as to why we're deciding to call this Empowering People with Energy.
Sure. At our core, that's what we want to do, really. We want people to feel empowered with their use of energy and how they understand it. I've always said that our industry has all good, great words, right? Light, power, energy. But we want the people we serve, our customers, to feel that empowerment, to know how to use energy and what it means and how it works. But more than that, on a deeper level, we want to empower our community more fully. Economic development, as you know, is core to our purpose. And that's what gets us excited. How do we grow this region? How do we make more opportunities for everybody? So we thought there was lots of double entendre there with empowering people with energy. So we want to have a full conversation, not just about our industry, but the impact it has on greater society.
Right. And to the double entendre, right, empowering people with energy. You and I have some similarities from our past where we were both teachers at one point in our career.
Yes.
And something I've always told my students, and I'm sure you probably share the same, is that, education and information is power. And I think hopefully that this will serve as another source of empowering our customer with the information that they need, right? It's something that we're hoping to achieve. So as we jump into our similarities, I know you have a long career.
That means I'm old.
No, wise.
Wise.
Yes.
Yes. No, I certainly have had a lot of different opportunities in the business world, yes.
And with those opportunities, it really takes making those personal choices that have led you to where you are here today. And I think a lot of us want to know, how did you get to EP Electric? So let's start off with the very basic question. Who is Kelly Tomlin?
Oh my, we don't have enough time. We don't want to take up all. The short version is I think that I have a great passion for life and for people. And as you know, I started out as a journalism major, and I really wanted to explore questions. I was curious. And that led me often to look at what impacted the world, and energy was one of those things. And it led me back to law school after I taught school and after I managed a Ponderosa, and I did a lot of other things. I went back to law school, and it continued to lead me to the questions of what impacts wealth? Why do certain environments look a certain way? And that always prompted me to look at the energy sector. And as I became an energy lawyer and went in-house to work for another utility company in Pennsylvania, the greater questions kept emerging to me, the greater questions that we're still struggling with. How do we deliver reliable energy but still impact the environment? How do we continue to make sure that we keep it affordable? And how do we give people the information they need to manage their lives and businesses? But on a personal note, I think I just took risks on myself and other people. I moved a lot. I moved after that from Pennsylvania to New York. I worked in London. I worked in Barranquilla in Colombia. I lived in Jamaica, as you know. So I think I was always presented with opportunities because I was really willing to take some risks.
Well, number one, what made you want to become a journalism major in college?
Yes.
What inspired you there?
Yeah, I just try to do broad because I find like I'm not the most interesting creature, but my dad was a coal miner. I didn't know anybody who had gone to college. I wanted a job. I thought that would be great if I had a real job and I got a paycheck. I never sat out and thought, wow, I want to be anything. I love to write. I still do, as you know. I think communication between humans is an art and a science, and it still fascinates me. But when I decided to be a journalist, I wanted to be Barbara Walters at the time, now showing my age again. But I wanted to investigate bigger questions. I wanted to tell two sides of the story. The morning show's on now. And the morning show starts with a woman going to a West Virginia coal mines. And I love this whole plot if you've watched the show.
Yes,
and she's asking these bigger questions. And I think that's what drove me to want to be a journalist. And I think the same thing drove me to want to be a lawyer as well. Just how do we look at both sides of a story, and how do we bring the truth in a way that lets people make their own decisions about truth?
And when you were going to law school, I know you mentioned that you were thinking about energy and kind of, the bigger questions. But with so many choices in front of you,
I wanted to be a litigator. I did moot court. I did trial court. I decided I wanted to be a litigator. But what I did after law school, I went to a big law firm. Big law firms do litigation that takes years and years and years. And so you're doing documents and depositions and a lot of that. And a lot of working for a big law firm is business development, billing hours, doing business development. And while I love the practice of law, I didn't love those aspects of it. Always trying to find a client, 15-minute increments of keeping track of your time. And I actually did a case with the local utility. And we were expected to work, we called it the 7-7-7 Club, 7 days a week, 7 to 7. And I love hard work. But my colleague said, you want to go golf? It was Friday at 4:30. And I went, I can't go golf working at 4:30. They were all going. And I just noticed they felt connected to a team. So I know that we always talk about the EP team, but I think our sector inside those organizations creates such a team that I didn't feel in a big law firm. So I gravitated not so much specifically toward energy, but what it stood for and what it did in the world. But more than that, this family environment that we enjoy here at EPE, I find that at utilities. People stay there a long time. They get committed to the community. I didn't have to call people out when there's an outage. They show up because it's their community. So I think I'm really wedded to the fact that this industry understands its importance. We create family environments, and people stay here a long time, and they're personally invested.
Talking about leading teams, I know that you've authored a couple of books.
Yes.
Maybe you could talk to us a little bit about the books that you've authored and what inspired them.
So the great thing about being in the energy sector has been the opportunity to get to know people over time. Because, as I mentioned, people often stay there a long time. And what I've found, especially in this industry, that has been male-dominated and often very hierarchical and bureaucratic, that we had some opportunities to improve as well. We had a director of diversity back in 1995 at my utility that said, you know what, we need some other type of people except for engineers that typically at the time were men and white men, and we wanted to do something different in the diversity realm. And really, we started talking what it meant to be a leader. And as I started roaming around the country, because I got the opportunity as a woman in energy, talking to people, I found there was some deep hurt that could happen in the world of work, meaning that you could go to work in some environments and come home better than you went in, or you could go to some environments and feel deflated and defeated and not appreciated at the end of the day. So I started really getting really curious about what impact the world of work had on the greater psyche, the greater ability to be fully human in the world. And I thought that I had a lot of opportunity in the energy sector. So if you Google today, Javier, leadership books, you'll get hundreds of thousands. But we haven't had the experience of people really saying, wow, there's great leadership today. And so I always believed that we needed to find a way to be with that. So my books are more reflection books. I take the best that I know about leadership and ask people to sit with it, to engage with it, to journal with it. And it is about taking what we know and putting it to work in our lives.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier that a lot of utilities are very hierarchical, and having that top-heavy structure, breaking that down, you're really talking about an evolution, right? And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about next is with the world changing, technology changing daily at this point. What has been the evolution of energy over your years of within the industry and leading utilities?
So I started in the energy sector in 1990 at Pennsylvania Electric Company as an attorney, and we still have the remnants of that bureaucracy, of course, and hierarchy and aversion to risk and all of that. I think what we have begun to do, though, and it's taken us some time, is to embrace technology in a different way and to understand that experience is important, but innovation is as equally important. There's a joke, and I know you've heard me tell it, that, Alexander Graham Bell came back with Thomas Edison. He picked up a phone and, he didn't know what it was or what to do with it. And Thomas Edison felt right at home because we fundamentally have been generating energy the same way for the last 100 and whatever years, right? So we are at a cusp now where we do see different players. It's not just energy players. We see Google, Walmart, everybody being an energy player.
Amazon.
And they're Amazon, Elon Musk. Someone asked me the other day, if Elon Musk and Steve Jobs ran energy, would we still be putting poles on the ground and lines on a pole to generate energy? And the answer is probably no, right? And we theorize why that is, that there's not an economic incentive, because what we earn as an energy sector or as utilities is around 10%. And a lot of people won't take a lot of risk on their money for that, meaning not put a lot of money for, if that's the maximum return, that may be it. Or people say that, we have lifetime work. That's why. But I think there's a combination of forces. But what I see happening now is the utility industry is behind clean energy and innovation for one of the first times. So that technology is moving. The technology related to communications, it has blended in with energy. That's really moving. Different fuel sources. It used to be wind and solar coming on very quickly. But battery technology, we were doing that in 1995. But now we've got momentum and commitment behind it too, not just from our sector, but outside our sector. And now we're giving more young people voice. And I think that's the biggest change, that we are learning so much now, so much more quickly, for lots of reasons. Think about it. I grew up without an internet. My kids still can't get that in their head. You didn't have an email? No text? No Facebook? None of that. So I want you to think what that meant. When I went to law school, there were books. We were just getting where you could go on and put in a research in a computer. Just think how much information we all have now and how much more we're learning. And I think that's what's changing our sector, because I don't have authority anymore. You could learn as much almost as I could, in a year. It's just the information is available, it's digestible. And so I think the people attracted to our industry are different. The risk level is now different, and the people who have power in our industry, pun intended, are different types of people. So I think all of that is accelerating change. It's accelerating how we think about our industry. We're getting pressures like we never have before. So that's all when change happens. external and internal change and external and internal motivators faster than I've ever seen it happen in my 30 years. And we talk about this too. Think about when Kennedy said, we're going to the moon. We're going to the moon in a decade. We didn't have technology that would go to the moon. And now I go over to UTEP today, and they're taking water off the moon, and they're doing things that I can't even explain.
Wow.
My point is, once you make a declaration, there's power in declaration. We are going to the moon. And you put the money behind it and the momentum behind it, things will happen. I think this is the first time I have felt in our sector that the energy industry, the utility industry, EEI, is behind it. The government is behind it. And we have the most socially conscious people now, under 30, who are behind it. So back in I was in the 60s, but back in the 60s, there was this idea that they were really socially conscious, and then they got older and they stopped being socially conscious. We've seen that not happen now. The millennials stayed socially conscious. So you have a lot of forces that are pushing our industry.
Something I wanted to also mention that you brought up earlier is our relationship with our customer.
Oh yes,
It's more of a conversation at this time, right?
Absolutely, Javier.
Yeah, talk to us about
Yes.
going from a service provider to now a social network with our customer.
We used to call our customers rate payers forever, and we knew what rate class they were in, right? That's rate 30, 40, whatever it would be for that particular utility. And it really reflected, I think, this hands-off approach. Like, we gave something to the customers, and they took the thing we gave them. And, that's long since become outdated. A lot of markets have physically restructured, so you can pick a generator, which, by the way, very few people did. And that restructuring did not result or manifest what they thought it would, meaning lower prices. There's no relationship to market structure and lower prices. But what has emerged over those many years is an understanding that the customer and the energy provider are in a partnership together. Mm-hmm. And if I just gave our customers exactly what they ask for all the time, it might result in us building too much, because some infrastructure in the United States is only used 200 hours a year. Power plants are not cheap to build to run 200 hours a year. So our customers are smart. If we give them information and say, you don't want us to build that because you're paying for it, then we adjust our behavior. And I think that's the conversation we're having today. We're giving information. We're going to take information from our customers so we can create a better service provider. So today we are in a partnership where we are talking together about what is the right mix of reliability, how do we protect the environment without accelerating prices more than we want, how do we all get excited about affordability. So I do think our customers are more active, and I think that's a good thing. They're more knowledgeable, and they have more technology that can help them be knowledgeable. As you know, thermostats help them manage their energy. Our new app, eventually, after we implement fully smart grid, will show them the energy they're using every day. So they have more awareness of how they're using energy and what it means in the world. So I think it's just information, as we just talked about, is everywhere. People know way more than they used to know. And there's more technology to help them be aware and to manage their energy. So a lot of things are happening all together.
And really tapping into, like you said, what customers, what our partners already know, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we're so used to our smartphones, right?
Absolutely.
We have all these apps, so how can an electric utility take advantage of that platform, mm-hmm. right? To become a tool for our customer, internet, right? Our websites, how can our websites become more interactive,
Sure.
right? As opposed to just sharing information. So thinking of those things, right?
Sure, and of course, once we do have smart grid technology, just like the place I just moved from, I knew what I used every month, every day. I didn't have to wait to the end of the month and get a surprise bill because I knew what I was using every day. And the utility was able to give price differentials when it was more or less expensive for them. And for me, I love that because I have an electric car, so I could charge it at night when it's cheap for the utility, and they could pass those savings on to me. We had information about different technologies that we weren't aware of 10 years ago. You know, how you build your house, how you position your house for the wind, how you put draperies in, what appliances do you buy, how do you cycle those appliances. Your refrigerator is usually your second most energy hog in your house, and people don't focus on the refrigerators. So we're all getting smarter together because we realize what's at stake. It's really our economy, right? We don't want to waste energy and we don't want to waste money.
I think there's also a lot of conversation in some parts of the country. You, as a customer, have a choice when it comes to your electric service.
Mm-hmm.
In other parts of the country, you don't, like here in our area, right? We're the sole utility provider. What are the differences? You know, for someone who asks, well, why don't we have another electric utility in our area? You know, why?
Nobody has another electric utility, meaning the wires and poles. Or think when you talk energy, you have some generation, and then you have the wires and poles that bring that generation to your home. And then you have another section, it's really the customer end, the call centers and how you interact with the utility, the technology apps and all that you mentioned. They're really thought of as really three different sections of our sector. So nobody has those choices on the grid. What people do have choice in some markets is what is your generator. And as I mentioned earlier, there was the thought, and I did this when PJM, which was then Pennsylvania, Jersey, Maryland, now it's bigger, deregulated. And the thought was when you deregulate, the prices are going to become so cheap. They did not do that because those people, too, have to make the same or more profit. They have to build the power plants the same way. So we didn't see that happen. You can look across the country right now. So there are sections that you can. What I found interesting in the markets I worked for, that people really clamored for choice. When it came down to choice, very few people actually switched because it was a lot of work for most people for not that many savings. So it's just how people and markets thought about what's the best way to get reliable, affordable, and technology advanced and environmentally sound energy. And different markets thought different ways about that. I will say, as you saw during the freeze, I was very glad we owned our own generation so we could work with our employees in our generation assets to make sure those assets stayed on. We didn't see that happen in other places who did not own generation. So having worked in both markets, I think there is a great synergy and a great benefit to our customers who today enjoy the best reliable, at least in Texas, and we don't keep those records in New Mexico, but enjoy either number one or two position and reliability. We have an unbelievable good carbon footprint, and I think a lot of that has to do because we've been working together.
Carbon footprint. I mean, that is definitely, it's almost like a trigger word for some people.
Yes.
It creates a hot topic. When you're talking about EP Electric's carbon footprint and how we compare and really the energy sector in general, you were talking to me earlier about right now the conversation around energy utilities are grounded in two major areas, right? Clean energy and cybersecurity. You know, with thinking for the next century and the role we play in this energy utility and the sector, where are we going and how, what are those conversations looking like and the carbon footprint, you know, will it get smaller?
Well, I'm really proud of where we are today. We're about half of the average carbon footprint in Texas and about a third of the average carbon footprint. And that's primarily due to a couple of things, one of which is in great wisdom. Prior to the time I got here, we sold our coal asset, which really is carbon intensive. We have great, reliable nuclear asset that is carbon neutral and stays online all day, all the time. It's a great asset. And that we're replacing now the most inefficient gas-fired power plants we have, and we're adding renewables. So we expect to continue to secure our position as a low-carbon utility. So that's one thing, and I think what our strategy has always been, replace the most pollutant first, right, the coal, then replace the most inefficient gas-fired and to add renewables. So I think that's really important. And we do, depending on how you think of it, contribute about a third. But the other third is transportation. And you and I have been working together on how do we really do our part in helping infrastructure, charging infrastructure, helping promote the transition to electric vehicles. As you know, too, that at least my car now is over 3 years old, and I haven't seen a dealer or a repair shop since that time. It doesn't require it. It's been a lot cheaper than buying gas, my energy, and I now still have a time of use rate, which helps to really lower my overall cost. So that's another big pollutant, especially here. And if you've been on Route 10, you know that transportation is a great part of our economy here, but keeping that and making that cleaner is important for our economy. And I'm really excited that our role with that. The other thing I think is our role is something you mentioned earlier, education and information to our customers, because we all contribute to the carbon footprint. And how can we help our customers know that if you use energy when you don't have to, between, let's say, 4 and 8, whatever the peak is, depending on the particular day and season, we'll have to turn on a power plant that is not as carbon neutral. So let's try to even out that peak. So I think that's giving information, education, tools to our customers. So there's lots of ways we help. Making sure we have clean generation, helping transition the transportation sector, giving our information and education, helping our customers understand their choices. And today, we're excited to be able to partner with our local education institutions to help further research around different fuels. You know, we're looking at how we know going forward, different fuels will be used, right? Hydrogen, for instance, we're excited about the possibility. Storage, how can we use it more effectively and make it cheaper? So we think there's a great room for partnerships, not just with suppliers, which we're doing, but also with our local education institutions. So those are all the ways we're playing. We're deeply committed to doing our part and helping our customers do their part to make sure we keep our top position as a carbon neutral, or at least getting to carbon neutrality.
So clearly, I mean, this is, something that we all went through across the globe, was the pandemic. And for many, the pandemic really, some people hit us stagnated, they unfortunately halted. They didn't see the type of momentum that they were probably experiencing before. Mm-hmm. Our region, with all the growth and development happening around us, I mean, we are definitely probably on the other side of the conversation, that, thankfully. How did El Paso Electric fare in terms of managing through the pandemic, and how are we looking right now in terms of helping our entire community power through?
Mm-hmm. Well, I hope our customers thought that we did very well. Certainly our reliability was great, and I give our team so much credit because we had to adjust our training, and we have a lot of new people because people are retiring. Every crew I've visited had at least 2, I think, apprentices on that. Wow. We had younger people in trucks separated, as you know. We had to take different precautions, but we were able to keep people in power and get them back in power, and I couldn't be more proud of our team. And I continually say this, never forget that they never went home. They never, ever went home, and I think sometimes we took that for granted. What if they just said, you know what, I don't really feel like it today, going out in the world and being all together in a control room, all together in a power plant with people that, I'm not sure what they do after they leave the workplace. And our team did that. And a lot of people were lauded, but I don't think our team was lauded appropriately. So I want to give them a credit right now because I didn't do what they did, so I can I can big them up, as we say in Jamaica. But so I think we fared very well. But what did get a little bit stymied was our technology, because we wanted to do the basics. We were doing what we need to do. And now that we're back on that very strongly, and I'm excited about that. I do think that our customers suffered because we now have about a third of our customers who are behind on their bills. And we're telling everybody, please call us. There is funding available. We do have that. But I do think there is this idea, I'd rather not talk to my energy company. So I think we did well, but I think our customers did have some challenges, and we're still dealing with that as we go forward about how do we get people back on track with payment. And I do think that a lot of utilities I talked to, no, I don't think, I know, said that their usage went down or actually went up. Because people ask me, why do you have to build this power plant? I said, because we're seeing levels that we did not expect to see for at least 3 years. Our economy grew faster. People transitioned from different air conditioning technology, and people are all using computers at home, and things have changed. And we don't see that going back because now we're all Zoom savvy and so on and so forth. So we do think our region will continue to grow, but our individual usage is continuing to grow.
You mentioned earlier smart metering technology. That is a huge initiative for EP Electric. People ask, well, what is that?
Yeah, stop, because
right.
It really isn't the meters. The meters are great. I love the meters because it gives our customers usage data. We don't have to call us when you're out of power. People can't believe it's what year, and I have to call you and tell you I'm out of power because you're not connected to our grid through a smart meter. But what's really exciting for me, which we just launched this month, is the smart system, meaning we are putting things on our system that lets it heal itself. We call it a self-healing grid that lets it look across its system and put people back in power without having to send a physical human person out there in the dark to find out where the fault is. It can physically look, or not physically, but look across its system from a technology standpoint and put itself back in power if there's nothing really wrong. If a limb just fell, a squirrel was on, whatever what the equivalent is here. Mm-hmm. If it's an animal thing, but there's really nothing wrong, but it saw something on a line, it will take itself out. But if it can look across and say, all clear, then it'll put itself back in. And that, I'm excited about that. I'm excited to how we can help our cities become smart cities. There's so much opportunity for that. Smart street lights, smart parking lots. When you look at what some other cities are doing around smart city, we're the backbone. Smart meters are a part of that. A smart grid's a part of that. But the overall goal in the long term is to create smarter regions, smarter cities that really work for themselves.
Wow. And it really becomes the foundation of a community, but also really sets us on a path forward, mm-hmm. right? And you're talking about EP Electric. We've been around for 120 years.
We're celebrating our anniversary.
Absolutely. It's coming up just next month.
Yes.
So it really asks the question, what do you see the future for mm-hmm. EP Electric? And it could be, our role in the industry, our role in the community. What are you seeing right now with this smart?
Well, I'm gonna sound like space agey here, but for the first time, I believe, let's fast forward 120 years. I don't think we'll be generating electricity through poles in the ground and wires. I don't think that. I think there will be wireless technology to generate your energy. Wow. Certainly, what you see happening now. Think about your app. I mean, today you'd be able to say, "Oh, look, my son's using 3 computers in there. Get off, Javier, quit using 3 computers." You could see how you're using it, where you're getting the energy from. Are you really getting from a renewable resource? I think that will be available. People will be able to generate on their own as we see today. We see renewables. We see DER, distributed energy resources, where people do have their own storage. I think we'll see that more and more. I do think industry today, though, when I visit with people who want to bring jobs here, they want to know about our grid. They can't bet on that 120-year change. They need to make investments today. So what we need today, and that fast forward, is to make sure we have the most reliable, the cleanest energy we can provide at the cheapest rate, because that drives economic development. So I see that happening in the future, where very soon from now, people will be able to direct their energy, know how much they're using, will be able to support smart grid. You can have street lights that act as security devices. You'll know when there's an empty parking spot because you will have the ability to know that through a smart city technology. But fast forward 120 years, and I won't be here to see it, but I highly doubt that we will be generating our energy in a non-wireless manner.
Thank you so much, Kelly. This is great. We were looking forward empowering people with energy,
Empowering people with energy.
Yep, and a lot of that is grounded in the information that we can offer.
Again, thank you for joining us on our first podcast. There's going to be more to come, but this is our first one. So thank you for joining us. Looking forward to hearing from you and seeing you soon.